Hey everyone, how's it going? It is 1 p.m. on Monday, October 21st. We just got the closing bell and it was kind of a blah day. Really, not too much happened in the markets. Let's go ahead and see what happened. This is also happens to be my first ever YouTube live stream, so hopefully all the technology is working well and everything goes smoothly, but if not, I'm learning I'm learning the system. So as you can see over here in the S&P 500, we talked about in the Telegram channel. By the way, let's see. If you want a link to my Telegram channel, you can go to tradingpub.com/Kane, and that will get you into the Telegram channel. So the first note in the Telegram channel was that 585 is still an important level. After the options expiration on Friday, the 585 was still the major gamma pocket in the markets. The big difference, though, was that there is starting to be a pretty very well-defined gamma pocket at 590, and then just the baby sprouts of something happening at 600. So the most important thing we need to see happen in this market if we're going to go up to either of those levels is that we need to break above this 585. There's still a significant or the most significant gamma pocket right there. So this morning we traded up, not quite there. We had a high, looks like of about 584.85, not quite 585. We came back down. We saw a pretty negative bias for a lot of the day down here, and we bounced off of that daily 8-day EMA value, and then we traded up and then sideways into the close, ending at about 583.50-ish, and below 585. So we were not able to break out of 585 today. Not too surprising. Today is Monday after options expiration. It's a rotational day. All we did was chop sideways. So let's take a look at what that looks like on the S&P 500. You can see that we're well within this box. This is a box. I talked about how this was a box down here, and now we have a box up here. Until we get above 585, this market is probably going to be contained within that box, maybe even poke below. So today might have felt like a bearish type of day, but really you can see that we opened or we closed very close to where we opened, and we closed very close to where we closed last Friday. Everything is just chopping sideways. So we don't have the catalysts to pull us upwards. We don't have the gamma structure to allow us room to move upwards, although it is looking more and more likely in that gamma structure. That won't get triggered until we get above the 585 level. So all week, until we break 585 is going to be the level that we really want to watch. Like today, we rejected near, not quite at 585, but very near 585. But significantly, we bounced off of the EMA again. So this is still kind of, it's looking strong and it's looking like there's some potential, but at the same time, it's like, oh, not quite yet. So we do really need to see how all of this plays out, whether or not we can get above that 585 level this week. And if so, then we can start targeting 590 and maybe even 600. 600 hasn't really developed enough yet for us to count on 600. So really for now, we were just be eyeballing that 590 level again, assuming we can get above that 585 level. Otherwise, from a technical perspective, this market looks really strong. We have very nice separation on our moving averages. Everything is sloped upwards. Everything looks kind of great. On a 1 week basis, we've just been chopping sideways. So do we have the catalyst to kind of push us above the 585? Well, let's take a look. We've had a strong catalyst and we haven't really been reacting to it before. So it might be just more of a kind of float upwards type of movement. So let's take a look at that economic calendar. Let's see what we have going for this week. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's try that again. Okay, so today is already over. Neil Kashkari said something kind of I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking. I used to sit pretty close to this guy, within a couple of desks away. So I don't know. I don't want to say I don't know why he's speaking this way, but he said few transactions happen in crypto unless it's drugs or illegal activity. Well, okay, so but no one is looking at Bitcoin at this point in time as a transactional asset. It's not, maybe someday in the future, yeah, but there are very few transactions are happening, period. So looking at Bitcoin as a transactional currency is a little bit foolish at this point. We need to look at it as a speculative asset, not a transactional asset. So I would take what he said about that with a grain of salt. I wouldn't pay too much attention to it because we are far from the point where it is a transactional asset. It is still very much a speculative asset. And as a speculative asset, it is performing. Let's take a look. I don't know. I haven't looked at it in quite a while. So it is performing just fine. Just fine. Look at that. Nice upward slope. Nice upward trend. There we go. Nice upward trend. Okay, so really we would call this a move upwards, a pullback, and then a continuation upwards. There's nothing wrong with this. This is a higher low, a higher high. Well, we haven't found the high yet, but this is anything above this or anything, it's already gone above this price. So for sure, when we make a high, it's going to be a higher high. This high is actually higher than this high. No, about the same as this high, but at least the open is above this open and the close is above this close. So it's looking like we're on our way to a higher high than this. So then our next pool of liquidity is up here in the 70,000 to 71,000 area. So this asset is moving very much speculatively and it's doing just fine. And it's looking like reasonably bullish in the short term for Bitcoin, at least from what I'm seeing right now, right? So if I was looking at Bitcoin, I would say, who's in control right here? Well, clearly buyers in control, or they're bullish over here. We had a pullback and now we have a continuation. When would it look like they're not in control? Well, maybe when we, or if we return back to this level, then it may look like they actually would still, they'd still be in control. It just would be very passively and wouldn't look very good again. In order for us to say that they're not in control, we'd have to fall back down to here. Okay, so Bitcoin is looking like a normal speculative asset that is trading on an uptrend at the moment in the short term uptrend. In a longer term, I would not call this sideways, or sorry, I would not call it downward, I call it sideways. Okay, this sideways range over here. So some people might say that this is kind of down, but I would say, yeah, but not really. And we're not done moving up. But if we break out of here, you can't make that argument anymore. So it's a little bit more accurate to say that we're trading sideways in a channel. And if we can break above that channel, then there's room for Bitcoin to grow because, again, we are evaluating it as a speculative asset, not as a transactional asset. So anything else in this economic report calendar? Existing home sales, that would be reasonably significant because this market has been fairly sensitive to interest rates. And the real estate market has been one of the sectors that have been rotated into and out of and into and out of. So people are definitely paying attention to it. So existing home sales will be fairly significant. Jobless claims, probably more of the same. And then the really more important ones will come on Friday, the durable goods and the consumer sentiment. So nothing really in the next few days. That probably means that we are a little bit more likely to chop sideways than try to pick a direction. But again, if we can get above that 585 level, then at least from a gamma perspective, it's looking very good for hitting 590. So let's take a quick look at QQQ. We talked about before how if QQQ, SMH, IWM, if they don't take the lead, then it's going to be a very limited upside for the S&P 500. So QQQ does look in the short term, look like it's doing pretty well, but we do have that previous all-time high that we're still not there yet. So we'll really want to see this take over that previous all-time high, start to lead the S&P 500, and then the small caps to do the same in order for us to believe in a strong bull market. Right now, we're just kind of in kind of neutral-ish type of mode. If I take a look at IWM, you can see that, yes, again, we have this trend upwards, but we're really sort of trapped inside of this box. Another important thing to look at would be SMH. SMH, we would want to lead the charge in QQQ, and it's far from the previous all-time high. So we're a little far from the ideal structure for us to get really positive in the S&P 500. So for now, it's just looking like sideways chop or very, very mild, slow floating upwards. That is possible as well. If we get above 585 with conviction, we might get sucked to 590 quite quickly because of that gamma pocket. But again, we'll just have to see. So nothing here is looking too exciting. Let's look at bonds. Bonds continuing its breakdown lower. That is really interesting. That's going to start putting pressure on things like XLU, on real estate, on anything that is interest rate sensitive. So let's take a quick look at XLU. Chopping sideways, so far hasn't had a huge effect on XLU, but the pressure will be felt because the yield on government treasuries is getting better and better as the prices of the treasuries goes lower. And then we're starting to compete with yield on utilities, because most people buy utilities for the dividend, not for speculation. So if I can get the same or better percentage on a treasury, then it is considered less risky and more reliable than getting the dividend on the utility. And so money will move out of utilities and into bonds. So we'll see. We're going to have to keep a close eye on this bond market, see if it keeps on breaking down. It did break quite a few key levels today, so it's definitely possible. Let's take a look at the dollar. Dollar is looking strong once again, and it's just moving up, moving up, moving up. It's going to compete with oil. It's going to compete with dollar. Anything that's dollar denominated, if the US dollar is really strong, then we're going to start competing with those. So gold has been on a tear lately. We hit that gamma pocket 250 on Friday. And there was a nice bonus trade in the Telegram channel. And you can see that we opened up higher today, but we closed actually just a tiny bit lower. We'll just call that sideways flat from Friday. So this does look like it does need at the very least a little bit of a mean reversion before it can resume upwards. Now, gold might continue to do well even if the dollar goes up higher, because it's starting to feel like there's a little bit more fear happening inside of this market. There's a little bit more concern that what I've been saying for the past probably 2 months now is that there is a bigger risk to the downside than there is to the upside. So the market seems to be recognizing that finally, and we're seeing this kind of reluctance to leave safe haven types of investments. And so gold has been doing very well. It can continue to do very well as long as people have this sense of uncertainty. So that could be relieved by the elections. It could be relieved by a better economic picture. It could be relieved by wars ending. It could be relieved by a number of things. If people finally get convinced that we're not going to have a recession because of the reinversion of the yield curve, because of the sudden drop in interest rates by the Fed at the last meeting, there's some concern that we might not get a soft landing. If we believe in the soft landing, then gold will probably get the wind sucked out of it. But as long as there is some sort of concern that we might not get that soft landing, then it looks like gold will do quite well. So right now, we just want to keep our eye on a mix of sectors, a mix of assets, just see how well they're doing compared to each other. And right now, the safer ones, excuse me, like gold seems to be doing very well. That's a safe haven right there. So just be careful this week. watch very carefully the 585 level in the S&P 500, the SPY, I should say, the SPY ETF, 585 level. That's going to be a very, very important level. We touched it 3 times last week. We touched it close enough to call it touched today again. And the more times we bump into something, the more likely it is that that level is going to break, either to the upside or to the downside. So if we consolidate, the longer we consolidate, the more, call it, energy is being pent up inside the market. It's like a spring that you're compressing. And so the longer this chops sideways, the more compressed that spring gets. So if it breaks out, it usually will break out with more energy or more speed and conviction and momentum if finally when that sideways range is broken. So far it's only been a week, so it's not super significant. But if this keeps up, and this keeps up all week, and then we still haven't broken out of 585 or broken down significantly, then we add another week, then we see next week, whenever it finally breaks, whenever this box that I had drawn earlier breaks, then the longer it takes for us to break out of the box, the more likely it is that we're going to move with call it violence, with a lot of movement, with a lot of volatility. All right, so far, all we can say though is that we've been chopping sideways, that we do have a gamma structure that if we can get above 585, then 590 looks pretty likely. Again, 590 isn't a huge distance from where we are right now. It would just be another mild leg upwards. And so this S&P 500 is really just very steadily pausing, moving up, pausing, moving up, pausing, moving up. That's what it's looking like for now. That picture could change, but for now, we're going to just keep our eye on that 585 level. Okay, so that is going to be it for today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I think that live stream went fairly smoothly from what I can tell, from what I'm looking at. So we'll probably try to keep on doing these on that YouTube live stream. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.